Chapter 639. Wuxian didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the naughty girl in his arms. This little mischievous child was extremely shrewd and cunning. There was a world of difference between her IQ and her immature body. Then, he helplessly carried her to the depths of the room. The drinks that Hancock had already prepared were clearly visible and neatly placed on the exquisite stone table. Dead old man really knows how to enjoy life. He is living a carefree life outside and still has a beautiful little maid. Yuxi's little mouth was constantly stuffed with pastries. From time to time, she glanced at Hancock's curves and secretly nodded. Her eyes then became dull and empty. She seemed to be comparing Hancock's figure with Kagaya's and winked at Dustless. "Stop talking nonsense and eat your food." Dustless scolded with a black face. He was speechless. He really couldn't figure out what Kagaya taught this little girl. But looking at her eyes, it was obvious that she was self-taught. He picked up the newspaper sent by Hancock and read it carefully, looking for the information he needed. If he guessed correctly, the 3 lieutenant generals should set foot on the summit in a few days. Seeing that Dustless didn't answer, little Yuxi took advantage of the situation. Obviously, she didn't want to let Dustless go so easily. "No wonder the aunties said that you are a monk who doesn't get close to women. I am the only one, it's the body." The words that were about to come out of her mouth stopped abruptly. Yuxi's neck unconsciously shrank. Dustless's eyes were gloomy as he stared at her sternly. "My body is normal." Yuxi quickly changed her words. She begged Kagaya for several months before she was able to come out. She didn't want to be locked in the little black room by Dustless again. Helplessly glancing at her, Wu Chen withdrew his line of sight. This eccentric little girl was very strange. Sometimes, he had to teach her a lesson. Otherwise, she might really take advantage of him. Rumble. The den mushi on the table suddenly rang. Dustless looked at Hancock, who nodded and took the den mushi. "You really know how to enjoy life." Little Yuxi rolled her eyes, but was simply ignored by Dustless. Living with Kagaya all year round, she is full of strangers to the outside world. The decadent life of the celestial dragons is beyond the imagination of the world. The resources of the whole world are at their disposal. In fact, compared to other celestial dragons, Dustless was already a monk who had seen through the world of mortals. "Long time no see, Sengoku." A magnetic voice came out of Dustless's mouth. He said softly, "You don't come to the 3 Treasures Palace for no reason. You must be up to no good by coming to find me." Marshal Sengoku on the other end of the phone was stunned. After thinking about it carefully, he was embarrassed. It was not a good thing for him to look for Dustless. Every time he looked for Dustless, he would find all kinds of hard work for Dustless. Ahem. There are exceptions to everything. Sengoku's face was red and he was gloomy. Before it started, in this short confrontation, he seemed to have fallen into a disadvantage. He couldn't help but feel emotional. Every time they had contact in the past, Sengoku seemed to be at a disadvantage. "Do you want me to participate in the promotion ceremony of Kuzan and Sakazuki?" In an instant, he understood Sengoku's intention. Dustless's voice came into Sengoku's ears. "Yes, at present, I am the only admiral in the marine. It is indeed unreasonable not to participate." Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this, and his tight heart also relaxed. He was about to open his mouth to praise Wu Chen, but suddenly he became sensible and sent him to the 18th floor of hell. "Even so, I still don't have time. You should know that my naughty daughter needs me to look after her." Dustless refused. Sengoku couldn't refute it. Hearing this, Sengoku's old face turned green in an instant. He was anxious for a while. As a marshal, he had never been smooth when he looked for Wu Chen, a general. Every time it was bumpy. Fortunately, he had already made preparations for this. He had long been prepared to coax and pester. After several years of getting along, Sengoku has figured out Dustless's temperament. This kind of person hates threats and coercion the most. If he does what he wants, he can turn the impossible into possible. If he blindly goes against Dustless, he will just be asking for trouble. There is no problem to participate, but there is a condition. About half an hour later, Dustless, who couldn't stand Sengoku's words, said. Sengoku's face was slightly stiff, and then he remembered the sensitive situation. He gritted his teeth and said,
As long as it is within my power and does not violate the Marine's philosophy, I can promise you.
Dustless nodded and was about to turn off the Den Mushi when Sengoku's intriguing voice suddenly sounded again, and the tone was full of different meanings. What do you think of the three of them? Sengoku's eyes narrowed slightly as he asked quietly. Dustless always felt that Sengoku's words had a hidden meaning. The three of them were naturally Sakazuki, Kuzan, and Borsellino. Is this old guy looking for a candidate for the future fleet admiral now? Dustless was secretly surprised as an absurd idea suddenly popped up. Sengoku has not been in the position of fleet admiral for long, about 6 or 7 years, and he is still at the peak of his life. It is too early to choose a candidate for the future fleet admiral. Everyone has their own strengths. Borsellino, Kuzan, and Sakazuki are all trustworthy, and they can all be stable in the future. Dustless took a sip of tea and said softly. At the same time, he also understood the intention of Sengoku. This old guy was nothing more than wanting to sound out his opinion. The candidate for the fleet admiral is not something that Sengoku can choose by himself. Generals like Dustless, Garp, and Vice Admiral Tsuru all have the right to speak. Now he is just asking for Dustless's opinion. As for the suitable candidate in Sengoku's mind, it is naturally Kazan. Not only him, perhaps Garp and Vice Admiral Tsuru are more inclined to Kazan. Now the most important thing is Dustless, the candidate decided by the marine giants. In the future, once Sengoku retires, Kazan will take over Sengoku's position. Chapter 640. Marlin's numerous warring states were full of hope, looking forward to Dustless's answer, their eyes anxiously waiting. A person like Sengoku was also a true man of justice, the complete opposite of those who talk about justice all day long but are perfunctory in their hearts. Although the things he dealt with were a bit dirty, at least he was more decent than people like Sakazuki. Unlike Sakazuki's extreme justice, Sengoku is more about benevolence and righteousness, which is somewhat similar to Kazan. Kazan. Of course he's more reliable than Sakasuji. Forgive me for being blunt, but there's a world of difference between the two. Dustless looked at Kuzan with admiration and didn't hesitate to send Sakasuji to hell. It stands to reason that Sakazuki is an extreme person. In order to maintain the rule of Tenryubito and the world government, he can sacrifice anyone. Maintaining the rule of the world government is naturally a disguised protection of Tenryubito. But Dustless knows that Sakazuki is a loyal dog of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. In the future, Sengoku supported Kazan to be the Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral. Because Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, supported Sakazuki, the position of Fleet Admiral was turned to this kid. Later, the two sides had a fierce battle in Punk Hazard, and Sakazuki suppressed Kazan. Dustless naturally doesn't want the leader of the Marine to become a dog of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, in the future. Sometimes, he and Sengoku are indeed at odds with each other, but on the contrary, sometimes, they also need to stand in the same trench. Marlin is waiting for you. Hearing this, Sengoku's tight heart was put down and he smiled happily. His face turned sunny and outlined a smile. He also thought that Dustless would support Sakazuki. After all, Sakazuki's rise to power is more in line with the interests of Tenryubito. This time, Dustless, who always cheats his teammates, finally gave his support. Time passed in a flash. Unknowingly, 3 days had already passed. Dustless's government ship arrived at Marlin, and Sengoku himself came to greet him. Unlike the past, at this moment, the Marine headquarters was full of laughter and lanterns. I am also an artistic person. Seeing Dustless looking at Marin with interest, Sengoku said proudly. The outside world's impression of the Marine headquarters is that they are big and rough, but in fact, Sengoku himself is a calligraphy master, and it is said that when he was a child, he won first place in calligraphy. It's the most important event in the past few decades. It's indeed worth mobilizing so many people, Dustless said as if it was a matter of course. The reason why Sengoku is so exaggerated is actually to take the opportunity to intimidate the pirates all over the world. The lineup of the 3 admirals is enough to make all the pirates all over the world scared. The idea was a little naive, but it was very practical. Dustless also enjoyed the treatment of a head of state. Surrounded by a group of senior Marine officials, he went to the Marine headquarters in the center of Marlin. The Marine soldiers along the way were confident and encouraged. Speaking of which, I've always had a question. After seeing that there was no one around, Dustless leaned close to Sengoku's ear and asked, I know that there are gangs in the marine, but why is that kid Sakazuki's hand so long that he became the guest of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars? Dustless asked doubtfully. Sakazuki became the fleet admiral because of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Sengoku's face solidified, and the corner of his eyes spread as he whispered, I don't know much about this. Maybe the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, value his style of doing things. In troubled times, a resolute marine general is needed to intimidate the world. Dustless gently nodded and reluctantly accepted Sengoku's words. As the only admiral at present, Dustless's arrival immediately attracted everyone's attention, including the retired Z, but after looking at Dustless, he ignored him. Regarding this, Wu Chen was too lazy to say more. Z, this old man's temper was too stubborn. The ceremony was extremely fast, and it was simply announced to the world through the video Den Mushi. In addition, after Sengoku made an impassioned declaration, the ceremony was hastily completed. The 3 admirals also got new nicknames, Akainu, Akiji, Kizaru. This is also a combination of their fruit ability and behavior. The atmosphere in the office was depressing, and there were only a few people. Kizaru, Akiji, Akainu, and others were also in high spirits. After decades of being a marine vice admiral, now the hard days are finally over. Ka. At this moment, the office door was pushed open, and several people with strange appearances suddenly came into view. Who ordered you to come here? Sengoku frowned and looked slightly dissatisfied. Looking closely, these people are CP0. They are not under the management of the marine, nor under the jurisdiction of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. They only serve one target so far, celestial dragons. This group of guys. Marine Headquarters Admiral promotion has nothing to do with them. Dustless also frowned. For this group of CP0 who dress like the indigenous people, Dustless is really not interested, even if their service target is celestial dragons. Dustless is celestial dragons, but unfortunately, he is not qualified to order them, and he can't even find the shadow of these CP0. With the attitude of watching the play, Dustless bowed his head and was silent. He suddenly remembered 6 or 7 years ago, when he first came to this world, he met Celestial Dragon's fiancée. She seemed to have an inextricable relationship with CP0. In fact, it's not only Dustless who can't order these CP0. Many Celestial Dragons don't have such qualifications. Chapter 641. Even Garp, who was snoring, woke up from his half-asleep state and opened his eyes. He was disgusted and deeply curious about these mice who had been hiding in the dark all year round. The more mysterious things are, the more attractive they are, which is human nature. The new 3 admirals also looked at the sudden appearance of CP0. To some extent, any action they take represents the Tenryubito behind the scenes. Akainu, Akiji, and Kizaru also have different views. Akainu is expressionless. Kizaru is touching his messy stubble with interest. As for Akiji, there is a little disgust, and he is not interested in this group of people. The high-level Marines present, their eyes are faintly aimed at the members of the CP0. The mice that have been hiding in the dark suddenly burst out one day. Anyone will feel strange. This group of professional servants are Tenryubito's lackeys, and the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, have no right to interfere with them, let alone Sengoku. Sorry, you are not among the objects we report to. The tall, expressionless man said, and his indifferent voice coincides with the machine. Sengoku's eyebrows were straight when he heard this, and the nameless fire in his heart rose rapidly. He felt like he was hit in the face. The implication of this remark is that Sengoku is not qualified to listen to their report. This is the Marine Headquarters of Marin. Sengoku said in a low voice, suppressing his inner flame. The CP0 member who spoke before didn't care and took Sengoku's words as wind. Although the 2 different organizations belong to the same organization, they are destined not to have much intersection in this life. Marine belongs to the world government, while CP0 belongs to Tenryubito, and the 2 are completely unrelated. Just when everyone was puzzled, the eyes of CP0 members were strangely focused on Dustless, and the 3 CP0 members who came looked at him like this. These guys, are they? Dustless looked at them without fear, and his eyes were as calm as autumn water, and he had faintly guessed their purpose. If CP0 is looking for trouble with him, there is no other reason than one. Yuki-shi. Thinking of this, Dustless's eyes, which were as calm as an ancient well, suddenly shot out a cold light. The dragon has a reverse scale, and you will die if you touch it. Lois South, Saint, should understand what kind of place Mariehwar is, and suddenly a strange kid whose birth and origin are unknown suddenly popped up. Strange little ghosts? Is this something you can call me? Watch your attitude. You're just a lackey. The demonic whisper suddenly resounded through the ears, and the CP0 who spoke suddenly froze. Suddenly, he felt a sudden pain on the left side of his face, and his body was hit by a cannonball. Ka ka ka! With a loud rumble, Dustless opened up a hole in the solemn office, and a cool breeze rushed in through the large hole. Not only did the cold wind not extinguish the hot and dry atmosphere, but it also heated up along with Dustless's sudden attack. A group of Marine executives looked at the murderous Dustless and then saw the members of CP0. They were also members of the same force. When they were about to persuade the two sides to stop, Sengoku shook his head without a trace. He signaled everyone not to act rashly. This is a matter between Tenryubito. It's better if they don't get involved, and Sengoku is also happy to see CP0 get beaten up. A group of self-righteous idiots. It seems that this guy is really angry. That little girl's position in his heart is higher than everything. Sengoku was surprised. For the first time, Sengoku felt that Dustless was such a bloody person. The boiling killing intent that came out of him was like a god or a demon. It seemed that he could hear the unwilling roar of the hell's undead, sharp and penetrating, making people involuntarily tremble with fear. Sengoku suddenly discovered that Dustless can't rub sand in his eyes. It's best not to try to anger him. No one can bear the terrible consequences. Dustless's murderous look is just because of a strange little ghost. If the little girl named Yuki she is really kidnapped one day. Sengoku felt a chill when he thought about it. Don't forget your identity, trash. His cold eyes stared at one of the CP0 members who was seriously injured and fell to the ground, and even his body was still boiling. Wu Chen's hoarse voice was like a wild beast breaking out of the cage, full of violence and destruction. Especially when those scarlet eyes stared at anyone would feel as if there was a blade on their back. And you too. His eyes suddenly fell on the remaining two CP0 members, and the blood in his eyes made their faces change greatly. The strange red light seemed to be able to distort time and space, revealing the gravitational force that will tear them to pieces. They retreated out of instinctive fear. Bullying the weak and fearing the strong, he's cuter. Garp laughed happily. He couldn't help but feel speechless for Sengoku. When facing Sengoku just now, the momentum of this group of CP0 members was still on par with him, or even higher than Sengoku. On the other hand, Dustless is as scared as a mouse seeing a fat cat. Sengoku's face is indifferent. A long illness makes a good doctor. He has been used to being slapped in the face. Over time, he has also developed a body of steel and iron, which is entirely thanks to Dustless. Don't act rashly. If you have something to say, we are actually just investigating her origin. There is no malice. Seeing their companion instantly killed by Dustless, the other two CP0 members had cold sweat on their foreheads. I naturally know that you have no malice. Otherwise, do you think you are standing and talking to me now? Raising his eyelids, Dustless said with no sadness or joy. The rage that broke out all over his body spread out like a tide. The whole office was frozen. Wu Chen's face was covered with frost. The flowing air turned into ice dregs. Crystal flowers formed in the air strangely. The atmosphere solidified instantly. At this moment, life seemed to be pulled out of the long river of time, no longer under his control, and time was frozen. Dustless took a step forward with no expression on his face, and the spirit of the remaining two CP0 members collapsed, and the unprecedented oppression made them almost suffocated. Chapter 642. The only two remaining CP0 members were desperate and depressed. It's not that they don't want to resist, but their struggle is meaningless. Dustless's attack speed is beyond the limit that normal humans can capture. Even if the observation hockey can perceive a little, the effect it can play is minimal. Their attack speed is not enough to deal with Dustless, and they can't keep up with Dustless's reaction rhythm, so all defense and counterattacks are a joke. Sometimes they can detect the existence of the enemy, but they can only passively take a beating, which is also a tragedy. Bastard, CP0 and Marine belong to the same force. The CP0 member with a long black scarf roared. Seeing that Sengoku and other Marine high-level officials were indifferent, They watched the show like an audience, and even Garp was drinking tea while eating the shellfish, and from time to time there would be a hiccup. When the only 2 remaining CP0 members saw this scene, 10 billion crows flew through their hearts. You want to drag us into the water when you see the situation is not good. It's still daytime, and it's not time to dream. Sengoku sneered and ignored this group of people. Everyone knows how to play with the wind. CP0 belongs to Tenryubito, and Marine belongs to the world government.
Although the two are of the same origin, they are also clearly separated.
Our Marine naturally has no qualifications to intervene. Sengoku said bluntly, with a gloating tone. This is a personal grudge between Tenryubito, and we have no right to interfere. Sengoku mercilessly sent the 2 CP0 members to hell. If they want to support Dustless, they will support him. Who told him to be a real Tenryubito? As for the lackeys of Tenryubito, ha 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 ha, they deserve to be killed. A mere lackey, who dares to challenge the power of the master, will be killed. You bastard! The CP0 member with a black scarf and the other CP0 member's face turned green.
As the direct officials of Tenryubito, they are used to being a tyrant, and this is the first time they have been humiliated in front of their faces.
I'm right in front of you. You dare to be distracted. I think your strength is good. A low, emotionless demonic chant rang out behind the 2 of them. Dustless appeared from the void like a specter. There was no aura at all. Compared to his light-speed movement earlier, he was now traversing through space. Observation hockey can't detect it.
This was all thanks to the heavenly hand power that the system had obtained in the past.
Within a certain distance, he could exchange items without anyone noticing. Louis South, Saint, don't be impatient. We don't mean any harm. This is a little girl who came out of thin air. There is no detailed record of a young lady who came out of thin air. Maybe she is a spy arranged by some people with ulterior motives. The CP0 with a black scarf trembled and quibbled. She couldn't help cursing in her heart. She didn't expect Dustless to be so strong. Moreover, he didn't act according to common sense. His straightforward nature was a true portrayal of him. He would never accept any compromise. Dustless was still unmoved. He also knew that these CP0 were innocent, but it didn't matter. He had already planned to give the master behind the scenes of these CP0 a look. Tenryubito is a very mysterious group. Most of them are trash, but there are also some elites among elites. For example, the existence of the CP0 behind the scenes is an extremely powerful Tenryubito. Tenryubito like Dustless, let alone ordering CPO, he has never even heard of the headquarters of this department. Not only Dustless, but most of Mariehua Tenryubito are like this. It can be seen that there is also a clear hierarchy among Tenryubito. Tenryubito like Dustless is more like a surfaced Tenryubito to some extent. In other words, most of Mariehua Tenryubito are more like chess pieces that are manipulated in front of others. I know you're innocent, but I'm going to clean you up. Qing Zhao's eyes were full of playfulness. Dustless said bluntly and indifferently. He just wants to use the faces of these people to hit the hidden Tenryubito behind the scenes. You? Hearing this, the only 2 remaining CP0 members were shocked and angry. Dustless's words completely treated them as dogs. Although they were dogs, after Dustless said so, their anger still soared. I won't kill you because I want the 3 of you to bring a message to the master behind the scenes. Dustless's cold eyes turned around the 2 of them, and he said expressionlessly, It's not impossible to check the household registration, but you also need to see who the target is. If they think they are omnipotent, I'm sorry, I just like to deal with those who think they are outstanding. Dustless's words suddenly caused the 2 CP0 members to stare angrily. Unfortunately, in his eyes, it was just an ant's feeble protest. Not even the slightest ripple splashed. Whiz! His body disappeared strangely for a moment, and when he reappeared, he was already beside the 2 of them. The extremely fast way of moving exceeded the limit of human nerve perception. All counterattacks are pale and powerless. Of course, this is also the reason why they don't train well. Terrifying people like Garp can perceive the existence of Dustless through observation hockey, and can effectively counterattack. Ka ka ka! A crisp bone burst suddenly sounded, and then they saw Dustless's eyes were cold, and he grabbed the right arm of the CP0 member with one hand and easily crushed his entire arm. Ah! Ouch! The miserable roar of a pig suddenly jumped out of the CP0's mouth, full of unprecedented pain and hatred, complaining and hating Dustless's ruthlessness and blackness. It was just that Dustless turned a deaf ear to this.
Wuxia was his reverse scale, and this group of people actually dared to have designs on them.
They did not tear them into pieces, but instead left them alive to struggle at death's door. This was already a great mercy. Dustless, on the other hand, felt that he was much kinder. If it was Huey G, she might have used Kill Greybones to blast him until there was nothing left. Chapter 643. Dustless's cold means made the Marines change their faces. Although it was not obvious, Sengoku could see a fear from the depths of their eyes. Looking closely, Dustless's eyes were cold, without any human emotions, and his quiet eyes were without ripples. If you have to find an emotion to replace it, it's contempt. The whole calf was covered with golden light in an instant, and Dustless swept out mercilessly. Boom! The originally closed conference room burst in an instant, a large fireball rose, and the dazzling sunlight shone in, causing everyone to close their eyes subconsciously. The solemn conference room was disintegrated in an instant, and a group of Marine executives showed a stunned expression, and they all looked at Sengoku.
Their brows wrinkled, and they all felt that Dustless had overdone it, and they felt that he was insinuating to the Marine headquarters.
This guy. Is it possible that he wants to use this to establish his power? Sengoku guessed with a gloomy face. Then he felt that the possibility was great.
Dustless wanted to take this opportunity to quietly release a signal to the entire Tenryubito, as well as the Marine headquarters, and even the whole world. This is what happens to people who have ideas about my daughter. Royce South, please pay attention to the occasion here. This is the Marine headquarters. Staring at Dustless, Akainu stood up with a black face. Unlike other people, Akainu belongs to the kind of soldier with an extremely resolute character. He can't rub sand in his eyes, and he is extremely protective of the dignity and face of the Marine. Dustless took the opportunity to kick out the Marine conference room, which is equivalent to indirectly slapping their old face. Akainu naturally couldn't stand it. If it weren't for the identity gap between the two sides, Akainu would have melted Dustless at all costs. For an iron-blooded soldier like him, Dustless's actions have touched his bottom line. However, as the fleet admiral, Sengoku didn't say much, and he was not qualified to talk nonsense, and he was not qualified to blame Dustless. The faces of the Marines were not good. Dustless was obviously making things big, and he was quietly warning them that this was the result of offending him. I'm sorry, once people get old, their reason will be replaced by emotions, and they will regard this place as their own home. I'm sorry. I'll be responsible for sending someone to repair this place. With an awkward smile, Dustless said embarrassedly, but his tone was frivolous and indifferent. Sengoku's mouth twitched fiercely and he waved his hand, pretending to be generous and said, "There is no need to be an outsider. As an admiral of the Marine headquarters, it's not too much to say that Marin your own home." Home? Do you dare to be so arrogant? Sengoku's heart. This was clearly Dustless purposely establishing his might, warning all of them in disguise. However, even if Dustless smashed the Marine conference room, Sengoku and other high-level Marines can't attack. First of all, he is a Tenryubito, and secondly, he is an admiral of the Marine headquarters. In addition, Dustless's unprecedented strength is the biggest concern. In a world where the strong are respected, whoever has the biggest fist has the right to speak. This loss is a sure thing. Sengoku's old face twitched and his face turned green. He had a feeling of leading a wolf into the house. He asked Dustless to support the Marines. He didn't expect that this time, because of the sudden appearance of CP0, he became the bitter object of Dustless's disguised prestige. He took the opportunity to let him smash the solemn conference room of the Marine headquarters. However, the opponent is a Tenryubito who has reached the peak of strength. Even if he is unwilling, he can only endure it. Sengoku's heart was depressed. The Marine headquarters can be said to be lying down this time. However, this group of guys. Sengoku couldn't help but shake his head and call them idiots. The identity of the boss behind this group of people is very exaggerated, enough to make the world tremble, but these CP0 are just dogs in the end. The reason why they are so arrogant is because they rely on their master behind the scenes. Dustless's scary aura didn't work in front of him. Bad luck. Sengoku stared fiercely at CP0 and simply chose to ignore them. As the Marine Fleet Admiral,
Sengoku's every move is watched. A group of marine executives saw that Sengoku turned a deaf ear and bowed their heads, holding the mentality of watching a play. Akainu, although unhappy, sat back in his original position. The fleet admiral didn't speak, and he had no status as an admiral. "You're the only one left," Dustless said with a smile as his eyes fell on the only remaining CP0 member. This guy is dressed more like a savage with unenlightened wisdom, wearing a flower petal similar to a sunflower around his neck, and the fear in his eyes are clear. Dustless once saw the members of CP0 by chance. Although this group of guys is also CP0, they are obviously different from the last time he saw them. Their strength is much weaker and they are not at the same level at all. The last time he auctioned Princess Otoheim, the CP0 he encountered, although there were only a few people, their strength was almost close to the level of an admiral. These street goods in front of him are only at the level of a vice admiral. It's no wonder that Sengoku will be disgusted with this group of insects. Their strength is not great, but they rely on the Tenryubito behind them. This kind of person is the most hateful. Take your companions and get away from me. The reason why I don't kill you is that I want to pass a message to your master behind the scenes. If you don't want to die, just come and find me. Wu Chen said impatiently with a cold voice as he withdrew his evil aura. It doesn't make sense to clean up these dogs. Even if all of them are killed, the effect will be minimal. The master behind the scenes will still do what he wants, and through CP0 Dustless, he also learned the news he wanted. In this seemingly pirate world, the right to speak has always been in the hands of the Tenryubito. Seeing that Dustless was finally willing to stop, Sengoku led the high-level Marines with a sigh of relief. In any case, this is the Marine headquarters. When it comes to the Gora CI, 5 Elder Stars, they will definitely be affected. After all, the Marines often appear in front of the world as the scapegoat of the world government. It would be best if Wu Chen could stop. Chapter 644. Seeing that Dustless was willing to let them go, the last CP0, who only had consciousness, recovered his desperate heart and looked at Dustless in fear. He couldn't even thank him and slipped away with his 2 unconscious companions. This is simply an undeserved disaster. It's just an investigation of Huku and he almost lost his life here. It has already left a psychological shadow. I guess we're going to lose face again this time. Akiji whispered. The projection of the video Den Mushi did not end. It is estimated that the Marine headquarters will lose face again. Although it was done under emotional control, only ghosts know what the outside world thinks. The Marines led by Sengoku were speechless and they looked at Wu Chen's eyes and couldn't help but be filled with resentment. What are you looking at me for? I'm innocent. Seeing everyone looking at him with bad intentions, Dustless spread his hands and said that it had nothing to do with him. In his view, he was completely passive. If you want to complain, you can only blame the celestial dragons behind you. Sengoku rolled his eyes. This guy is really shameless. He beat people half to death and scared them into paralysis. He also said that it had nothing to do with him. Sengoku asked himself that he had never seen such a shameless person in his life. When he saw people, he hated himself even more. You're innocent? At this moment, Akainu stood up with a straight face and said in a gloomy and hoarse voice, "This is the Marine headquarters, not a vegetable market, and it's not a place for you celestial dragons to fight." His tone was not good and his words were quite harsh. Vegetable market? I don't think the Marine headquarters really has anything to do with the vegetable market. Otherwise, it's impossible for those cats and dogs to sneak in so casually. Looking at Akainu's eyes, Dustless said expressionlessly. The CP0 directly broke into the conference room, which is really no different from the vegetable market. It's even easier than entering the vegetable market. At least there are shouts in the vegetable market, and the Marine headquarters doesn't even have a ghost. As a Marine of absolute justice, you must maintain the justice and dignity of the Marine. If you can't do it, you will fail to live up to the word justice on your shoulders. With cold eyes, Akainu's hands were boiling, and the crimson magma was clearly visible. The scorching temperature was chilling, and the steel would melt instantly. Dustless sneered. I once said that your justice is just a child's play. What my heart points to is justice. His words were sharp and sarcastic. He suddenly found that after becoming an admiral, Akainu became more narrow-minded, or he became more extreme. I don't care if you are a Tenryubito. Now that you are wearing a Marine Admiral's cloak, it means that you are a Marine Admiral. It is necessary to maintain the dignity of the Marine. This is your obligation. Akainu was boiling. It seems that as long as Dustless refuses, he will kill him on the spot. Didn't I say, your justice is just a child's play? What my heart points to is justice. Wuxia didn't back down and shouted in a deep voice. Seeing the scene going wild again, Sengoku just smiled strangely and didn't do anything, nor did he speak. The deep smile on the corner of his mouth made people daydream. Kendo Red Lotus. The hot fist composed of lava came head-on. Seeing that Dustless didn't know what to do, Akainu was angry and took the lead. Staring at the oncoming red lava, which obviously condensed into the shape of a dog, Dustless laughed. Sakazuki, I finally understand why your nickname is Akainu. This ferocious red dog head is a perfect match for the dark-skinned Sakazuki, who likes to wear red clothes. The outside world calls Sakazuki a ferocious red hound. Hearing this, Borsellino's smiling face suddenly solidified, and he looked at Dustless with a little dissatisfaction. He always felt that Dustless's words were deliberately aimed at him. Doesn't this mean that Kizaru is equal to a yellow monkey? Akiji didn't care about the reputation of the nickname. It's just a name for pirates. Kazan never cared about it. Don't run. Seeing that Kazan didn't hide, Akainu said angrily. He launched an attack with all his strength, but Dustless didn't avoid it, as if it didn't exist, and turned a deaf ear to it. This is equivalent to indirectly slapping Akainu's face. How can he not do it? This kind of attack, there is no need to hide. Dustless smiled indifferently. His right hand suddenly condensed a shining light. Looking at it under the sun, Dustless's whole arm was particularly dazzling, and his fist had turned black. Whiz! With a sharp whistling sound, Dustless's body disappeared, and only a fleeting afterimage could be seen, and he rushed straight toward Sakazuki. Boom! The air suddenly exploded, and the crimson hound condensed from magma in Akainu's hand burst instantly, like raindrops falling, splashing magma all over the ground. His body couldn't help but retreat a few steps. Congratulations on becoming a general, Sakazuki. However, your strength seems to be stuck at the lieutenant general level. You don't live up to your name, Dustless teased calmly. When his voice fell, his whole body suddenly entered the armament hockey state. It's good to use this guy to test the level of armament hockey. Dustless's body turned into a dark iron man, and even when he spoke, the sound of rolling steel came out of his teeth, and his momentum was no worse than Sakazuki's. This armament hockey attainment is good. Sitting next to Garp, Z nodded. Dustless's armament hockey made his eyes shine. It's true, when I reached his current level, it took twice as long as him. Garp heard this and nodded, feeling thousands of emotions. A new generation replaces the old, and it won't be long before they disappear in this sea of strong people. Chapter 645. Z and Garp were talking. Both of them belonged to the same era, so naturally they could talk quickly. Especially since both of their temperaments were very similar. They were both upright and straightforward people. This is Sengoku's deliberate move. Z said in a low voice. He had already faintly guessed what Sengoku's purpose was. To be honest, he completely scoffed at Sengoku's approach, but he also knew that it was helpless. People live like this in the world. Either go with the flow or change their fate. It should have been discussed in advance. In short, based on the current situation, Sakazuki is indeed unsuitable for the position of Fleet Admiral in the future. I think Lewis South and Sengoku are deliberately targeting Akainu. Garp concluded with a gleam in his eyes. Z also slightly nodded. He could see the strangeness in it. Although the means can't be seen, Sengoku was also forced to do this. Akainu is an extreme person. If he becomes the Fleet Admiral, maybe the Marine really has no choice. Generally, after being promoted to Admiral, the future Fleet Admiral will be determined in advance just in case. Although it is superfluous, it is not a rule passed down. When Sengoku stepped into the position of Admiral, Sky planned to let Sengoku replace his position in the future. Akainu has the support of the Gora CI. It is almost certain that the Fleet Admiral will be his. Sengoku had to find another way. With this incident, he will attack Sakazuki's prestige. Although he is somewhat sorry, he can only do this.
As for why Dustless agreed with Sengoku to plot against Sakazuki, the reason is that he doesn't want the future fleet admiral to become a dog of the Gorosei. So this time, the main force to attack Sakazuki is Dustless. He is the only suitable one. Boom, 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 boom. The battle of admiral level can be imagined. It is easy to see the mountains collapse and the sun and the moon lose their light. Dustless is fine. He is only using armament hockey to fight with Akainu. It is also a disguised exercise. As for Sakazuki, it is extremely exaggerated. The burning black smoke covered the sky. The dense black smoke even blocked half of the sky. The ground is also penetrated by the dark red lava. Sengoku frowned slightly when he saw this scene. He noticed the slight vibration of the ground. His observation hockey subconsciously opened, and groups of marine soldiers quickly came to support. Kazan. Hearing this, Akiji, who looked sleepy and lazy, opened his eyes and looked at Sengoku helplessly. After seeing his serious expression, he nodded. Iseon. Gigantic circular ice layers rose from the ground, the large icicles reaching up to 70 feet tall. The center of the battlefield between Dustless and Sakasuji was a forbidden zone, isolated from the world. Bang, bang, bang. Every time the punches and kicks collided with each other, the air would explode. Every time the dull sound would be accompanied by a blazing wave of air. The air would emit white waves of air as if it was boiling. This was all thanks to Akainu. The power of the magma fruit should not be underestimated. Of course, Akainu himself also exerted its power to the extreme. Boom, boom, boom. With a loud bang, the air trembled violently. Both of them took a few steps back. It was obvious that Akainu was at a disadvantage. He retreated 5 or 6 meters in succession, while Dustless only took a few steps back. His dark face became more and more unsightly. This guy's attainment in armament hockey is so deep. Akainu's face was black and extremely ugly. In just a few breaths of time, hundreds of rounds of fierce confrontation have been exchanged. His magma fist did not cause much damage to Dustless, who was in armament hockey state. The battle scene was particularly fierce. Looking around, the ground has been replaced by lava, and the temperature has increased dozens of times in an instant. Conventional attacks can't hurt him, so Akainu stepped forward and almost instantly came in front of Dustless. His hand was burning with hot magma. Akainu! Boom, boom, boom. The ground suddenly trembled. Akainu, who suddenly attacked, covered Dustless's face with his powerful fist. The rolling magma will burst in an instant, swallowing the whole head of Dustless. Even if you don't die, you will be seriously injured. Akainu breathed a sigh of relief. When fighting an expert like Dustless, one had to be tense at all times, and the slightest carelessness would cause one to be consigned to eternal damnation. So highly concentrating one's mind was naturally strenuous. Ha! Before Akainu could take a few breaths, his thick arm was suddenly grabbed by a thin little hand. Akainu was shocked and did not hesitate to burst back. The seemingly weak little hand was connected to the foundation of the whole world. He could not retreat at all. Even if you don't die, you will be seriously injured? What do you think that kind of fragile fist can do, Sakazuki? Or, even after you are promoted to admiral, the level is still the same. Or your justice is as fragile as this fist? Dustless's whole head was burning with flames. Even so, the contemptuous ridicule fell on Sakazuki's ears. Even the magma could not swallow Dustless. It was extremely strange. What goes around comes around. This time, it's my turn to fight back. His left arm tightly grasped Akainu's arm. Dustless slowly raised his right arm. The black light wrapped around his fist, under the illumination of the sun, was invincible. His pupils suddenly shrank. Akainu smelled an unprecedented danger and did not hesitate to burst out. Armament hockey hardening. Coincidentally, the same dark skin as Dustless instantly spread all over his body. Boom, 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 the tender iron fist roared mercilessly. Akainu's old face suddenly turned ugly, and immediately flew upside down like a cannonball, hitting a deep hole in Akiji's frozen isolation circle. Looking closely, Akainu's old face was crooked. This kid is good at hitting the face. Sengoku, Garp, and others saw a chill. They looked at each other and could see the entanglement in each other's eyes. They could clearly see the traces of dislocation in Akainu's chin. But when they think about it, only Akainu's face was swept to the ground, The position of the fleet admiral will not be his turn for the time being.
As for the future, they can drag it out for a day. I was wondering why I didn't see the first ghost blade when I went to Mariehua last time. It turned out to be in his hands. Sengoku was surprised. Just at a glance, he recognized the first ghost blade in Dustless's hand. This powerful demon blade is world famous and has been in the hands of the bald Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Does it even need to be said? He must have used some kind of underhanded method to get it. But then again, from the looks of it, this guy has successfully mastered the first-generation ghost blade. Garp exclaimed, his eyes widening. The legend of the first ghost blade has been spread in the world for a long time. Every time it appears, it is a world-class major disaster. This legendary blade has been kept by the bald Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. They didn't expect it to be in the hands of Dustless, and looking at his relaxed demeanor, it is obvious that he can easily control the evil nature of the first ghost blade. The power is good, and the characteristics of the magma fruit are vividly displayed. However, there is a saying that everything restrains each other. Maybe I am destined to be the one who restrains you. Dustless stared at the oncoming magma fist calmly. He was as motionless as a mountain, and deep in his eyelids, he maintained the indifference of an ancient well from beginning to end. The whole person was as quiet and tranquil as a statue, with a noble and elegant temperament. After a few breaths, Dustless's eyes suddenly widened, emitting a cold light. The first ghost blade in his hand was also unsheathed in an instant, and a blood-red cold light shot out, penetrating the incoming giant magma fist. Poochie! The sound of cloth being torn easily sounded. Looking up, they saw that the giant magma fist was close to Dustless, and it burst open in an instant. It was cut in half by the bloody slash. This kind of flashy trick can't touch my body, and the effect it has on me is minimal. If you want to use it to defeat me, it is tantamount to an ant shaking the sky. The light and indifferent voice resounded through the sky, accompanied by a roar. The first ghost blade returned to the scabbard. Looking at it, Dustless was stunned. Akainu disappeared strangely, leaving only the magma on the ground. His observation hockey was spread out, but he didn't even notice the existence of this guy. This guy. Dustless remained vigilant. He was not stupid enough to think that Akainu would stop halfway. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, the magma under the ground trembled, and the irregular vibration was limited to the area where Dustless and Akainu fought. Obviously it was man-made. His pupils narrowed, and observation hockey spread out again. This guy is like a cunning rabbit. He has the appearance of a reckless man, but his heart is very careful. Dustless admired Akainu with a smile of admiration. The characteristic of magma fruit is that it can turn itself into a magma man and integrate into the magma. The reason why Akainu escaped the perception of observation hockey was that he integrated into the magma deep in the ground. Most of the islands in the New World are composed of erupting magma, and Marine Headquarters is no exception. This guy knows how to use the magma deep in the ground to attack Dustless, and his power and grade have increased a lot. Chapter 647. The ground throbbed and twisted, as if something was about to break out of its shell, constantly protruding upward. The lava on the ground surged violently like a tide for a moment. Everyone's heart was covered with an unprecedented depression and silence. Bastard, that kid is really angry. Does he want to destroy Marlindo? Sengoku seemed to have guessed what kind of exaggerated trick Sakazuki used. He roared with a pale face. The violent vibration continued to spread, and the isolation area temporarily created by Akiji gradually collapsed. The initial range was limited to the area where Dustless and Sakazuki fought. Until the end, with the power of the volcano, it spread to every corner of Marlindo. There's no mistake, it's that trick. It seems that Akainu kid is angry. Yes, he was beaten so badly. If it was me, I would also fight him to death. Garp said sympathetically. If his chin was crooked, maybe he would be angrier than Akainu. Well, so what? He pulled the entire Marine Headquarters into the war. Sengoku snorted with dissatisfaction. If personal grievances were mixed in this competition, everything would change. Indeed, Meteor Volcano is enough to cover a large area of Marlindo, but with us here, what are you afraid of? Garp patted Sengoku's shoulder and laughed. Easy for you to say. Looking at Garp with dissatisfaction, Sengoku also turned his head to look at this unprecedented scene. Indeed, as Garp said, there was no need to worry. The range is amazing. Dustless nodded secretly. He was quite surprised by the range of this trick. The vibration continued to spread, as if Sakazuki could cover the entire Marlindo if he wanted. It was exaggerated beyond imagination, and the scale was even wider than Yasukani no Magatama. Such a great improvement was entirely due to Sakazuki's magma from the underground volcano. After combining with the power of nature, there was a qualitative change. Ka. The solid ground suddenly burst open, and the void turned fiery red in an instant, and the hot temperature evaporated the moisture in the atmosphere. Then, a sharp whistling sound resounded through the sky, accompanied by the words, "Meteor volcano." The ground changed dramatically. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, countless flame fists rose from the ground, covering the void, and almost in the blink of an eye, they filled the entire sky. It was impossible to estimate how many there were, but the power was extremely frightening. Clang! The first-generation ghost blade was unsheathed again and a sharp blood-red light shot out, easily destroying the flaming fists that came out of the ground. However, there were simply too many of them. Even if Dustless could destroy one too, in the face of hundreds and thousands of them, he could only sigh. Even if he wanted to stop them, he could only watch them fly into the void without using any other abilities. Countless flaming fists swept into the void and strangely disappeared. It was as if everything had ended and peace was restored. The boiling lava on the ground also stopped flowing. Everything came to an end. However, in the next second, the clear sky was thrown into chaos again. Looking up, countless flaming fists whizzed down. The densely packed area was enough to make one feel despair. The pressure from the huge magma fists was suffocating. Ah! Forcing me to use other abilities is a form of recognition for you, Sakasuji. You should be glad that I haven't used that ability more than a few times since I came to this world. Dustless lamented. Nonsense. I hope you can still be so calm when the countless magma fists hit you. Sakasuji glared at Dustless. In fact, he was looking forward to Dustless begging for mercy, but he was destined to be disappointed. Dustless didn't even look at him from beginning to end. His calm eyes stared at the descending magma fists. Countless magma fists. Do you think victory is in your hands, that you can easily defeat me? Don't have such a ridiculous idea. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Dustless mercilessly attacked Sakasuji. However, Akainu maintained his arrogance at all times. Obviously, he was very confident in his moves. Dustless's words went in one ear and out the other. A lot? It's a lot. But it's a pity because I have more. Kaibao of the King. The void behind Dustless shook violently in an instant. Countless vortexes suddenly appeared. Then, as many as the stars in the sky, all kinds of weapons poked their heads out of these vortexes. The exquisite craftsmanship and the sharp radiance made it obvious that it was not an ordinary item. Especially the exaggerated number of tens of thousands, as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges. It completely exceeded the concept of many. The entire sky was instantly dyed golden. How is this possible? What ability is this? The Marines led by Sengoku were stunned. Even Sakazuki was stunned as he stared at the divine weapons in the void. He wanted to count how many weapons there were, but he found that he couldn't count the exact number. One after another, a steady stream of weapons drilled out of the void. Tens of thousands. This dense number compared to the falling flame fist was obviously dwarfed. Akainu's meteor volcano was not worth mentioning. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. With a gentle wave of his hand, countless divine weapons rose into the air, rushing towards the lava fist that was descending from the sky. Boom boom boom. The silent void was able to explode. The weapons in the Kaibao of the King were destroyed and melted, but the same was true for the magma fist falling from the sky. The destroyed weapons were once again complacently replenished from the Kaibao of the King, and Akainu's meteor volcano was obviously not the same. It's over, Sakasuji. Don't ask for trouble. Looking at Akainu faintly, Dustless said bluntly, in human form, you and I may be evenly matched, but when I look down at you from the perspective of God, any resistance is a futile struggle. Chapter 648. Sakaski's basically black face became even gloomier. Even if he tried to hide his inner calmness, his anxious expression was exposed to Dustless's eyes. The air was densely packed with all kinds of weapons,
Almost boundless, like a mountain, Sakaski's breathing was dozens of times more difficult than usual. "It seems that your justice is nothing more than this, Sakaski," Dustless said calmly while holding back his inner smile. Akainu was covered in scarlet blood, and his chin was tilted by Dustless. The first impression he gave was that he was particularly miserable. In fact, this guy didn't suffer much damage, and Akainu's armament haki has reached the realm of perfection, resisting most physical attacks. Over? It's still far from over. Staring at Dustless, Sakaski shouted. He is the kind of person who is extremely extreme. As long as his combat power is still there, it is tantamount to a fool's dream to want him to give up his views, which is unrealistic. In other words, as long as he didn't die and still had a breath of life left in him, he would never stop. Insensible man. Raising his eyelids, Dustless said hopelessly. This kind of stubborn person, unless he can't stand up, it is impossible for him to give up. Sakaski's stubbornness and fortitude are known to the world. Bring it on. With a snort, Sakaski's fighting spirit soared. The moment his voice fell, a black shadow fell in front of him in the blink of an eye. Dead water, silent eyes without luster, looking at Sakaski as indifferent as a corpse. How can his speed be so fast? Sakaski couldn't help but exclaim. His face was incredulous. Dustless's strange movement just now seemed to ignore the distance. Looking at Akainu's shocked eyes, Dustless didn't choose to rush, just looked at him. Speed? What is speed? Speed is distance. Dustless's whisper sounded in Sakaski's ear with a wise tone. What do you think the definition of distance is? 1 meter or 10,000 meters? Or perhaps it's even further away. For Dustless's words, Akainu was at a loss. He was confused and didn't quite understand the meaning. Don't you understand? Everyone's definition of distance is actually different. The ends of the earth in your eyes, in my eyes, is just a snap of the finger. If I explain it this way, you should understand what it means. Whether it is a short meter or a distant 10,000 meters, the meaning is the same for Dustless. The distance between 1 meter and 10,000 meters is just a thought. Are you kidding me? Akainu roared with a fierce look. At the same time, a huge magma arm condensed on his right arm, and mercilessly blasted toward Wuxian, who was close at hand. The expanding magma fist was enough to devour and destroy everything in the world. Fire breath. In the end, the winner is the winner, the winner is the winner, the winner, the loser, the winner, the winner, the winner, the winner, the winner, the winner. The winner was the king, and the loser was the bandit. This was a principle that had not changed since ancient times. After all, history was written by the victors. Boom, 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 the splashing flames engulfed Dustless, and the whole person was wrapped in magma. This scene looked numb, and even with the defense of armament haki, the surface of the skin would be seriously burned. Akainu's face was full of hope, his eyes were fierce, his right arm once again condensed boiling hot magma. This slight physical damage is far from enough to hurt Dustless, he must work harder. Fire breath. His arms condensed into giant magma fists, Sakazuki attacked mercilessly. The bursting magma swallowed Dustless layer by layer. The hot temperature is enough to melt steel. After dozens of times, Akainu was able to stop. Even with armament haki defense, he will die. Seeing this, Akainu breathed a sigh of relief. His body with magma evaporated the sweat stains. The strength suppression brought by Dustless was like encountering the legendary natural enemy. It was a tricky situation. It's over. The powerful voice spread out, like a wave, fell into the ears of all the Marines present. Everyone nodded slightly. At this point, Akainu is indeed winning. It's over? It's really over, but unfortunately, the person who was defeated is called Sakazuki. The voice resounded through the endless void, full of rich magic, lingering in the sky for a long time. It didn't dissipate, it resounded in everyone's ears. Shinra Tensei. Boom. The thick magma wrapped around Dustless's body burst open, bounced off by a powerful force. The intact Dustless was exposed to everyone's ears. Impossible. Seeing this, Sakazuki's pupils dilated. He rubbed his eyes, thinking that he was old. Dustless didn't care about him. His palm covered the area where Sakazuki stood. A strange black hole appeared in his palm, revealing a strong gravitational force. Gravity is the natural enemy of all living and non-living things in nature. Bansho Tensei. Akainu's body flew over uncontrollably. He struggled hard. Even if he gritted his teeth to stop his body, he couldn't do anything. Under the pull of gravity, the dominance of his entire body belongs to Dustless. Akainu himself can only play a small role, like a stone thrown into the sea. It only caused a short ripple, and was immediately forcibly pulled over by Dustless. After just a few breaths, Akainu fell in front of Dustless. The deep eye sockets turned rapidly, the darkness was gradually swallowed and replaced by blood red. Dustless's eye sockets changed dramatically. The mysterious eyes composed of pentagrams were clearly visible. It's useless to struggle, this time I will finish you completely. Even if you are made of iron, I will put you to sleep. The pentagrams in the pupil of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan twisted. Like ripples on the calm sea, Akainu was swallowed and annihilated in an instant.
Tsukuyami. Chapter 649.
Tsukuyami. As Dustless's voice fell, Akainu's violent eyes were as still as water, and the boiling lava all over his body also calmed down and returned to normal.
His eyes were drowsy.
Akainu looked at Dustless's face and intended to open his eyes and fight again, but he was powerless. He closed his eyes involuntarily and fell to the ground awkwardly. Seeing Akainu fall to the ground asleep, Sengoku, the leader of the Marines, felt relieved and breathed the fresh air easily. Just now, because of the Akainu fruit, the air that entered the lungs was abnormally hot and could easily burn human organs.
You've gone too far. Seeing that there was no one around, Sengoku quietly swept to Dustless's face. Because of the deliberate control of the two, Marlindo was not affected. The area where Dustless and Akainu fought has become a pile of ruins.
The scene of devastation was unbearable to look at, and the strange smell of burning was filling the air, making people nauseous.
Don't blame me. It's all thanks to Sakasuji. Also, hit Akainu's face, that's your order. Dustless looked innocent and pushed all the blame to Fleet Admiral Sengoku. My order? Sengoku's old face suddenly turned red.
If Dustless was really willing to obey his orders, the pirates in the various seas of the world may have been caught a few years ago.
It doesn't matter. Just find someone to redo it. Waving his hand, Sengoku was relieved. Looking at the fainted Sakasuji on the ground, Sengoku's old face flashed with embarrassment.
To be honest, the reason why he took the opportunity to suppress Akainu was that this guy was too close to Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and the position of the future Fleet Admiral may be close to him. Sengoku didn't want Akainu to take the position of Marine Fleet Admiral, so he had to join forces with Dustless to suppress his arrogance. It's best to make Sakasuji make a fool of himself in front of the world. In this way, Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, will hesitate. A Marine Fleet Admiral full of dirt, sitting on the top of the Marine will only make the military unstable.
He only has himself to blame, Dustless said expressionlessly. The purpose of teaming up with Sengoku is very simple. This guy is a loyal dog of the Gorosei, and he has countless grievances with the Gorosei. Naturally, he doesn't want Sakazuki to become the Fleet Admiral. Thus, Lang Lang tricked him under the heavens. In truth, it didn't matter who the Admiral was, except for Sakazuki. Is he okay? Seeing Akainu sleeping like a dead pig, Sengoku doubted. Hearing this, Dustless rolled his eyes, and a wicked smile flashed at the corner of his mouth. He gave Sengoku a look and said with a chuckle, "You can rest assured that Sakazuki will be very happy." Seeing Dustless's cunning smile, Sengoku's cheeks were full of strangeness. He knew that Dustless must be up to no good. At the same time, he also faintly guessed what Dustless meant. Then he shook his head and was too lazy to say more. Anyway, it has nothing to do with him. The plan given to Dustless didn't say that Sakazuki would be like this. Time flies. 7 days of effort quietly slipped through the fingers. The appearance of the 3 admirals was an unprecedented disaster for the entire pirate group. Akainu was fine. He was exhausted by Dustless's Tsukuyami, and temporarily recuperated in the Marine headquarters. As for Akiji and Kizaru, they were pulled by Sengoku as coolies to lead the fleet at hand to sweep the new world. A new broom sweeps clean. This is what it means. Countless great pirates were locked in Impel Down forever. You bastard, I will not let you go. A pig-like howl resounded throughout the Marine headquarters. Sakazuki angrily smashed open the door of the Fleet Admiral's office. His scarlet eyes stared at Dustless, his whole body emitting hot lava. Sakazuki, give me a distraction. The coldness on Sengoku's face disappeared in a flash, and he warned coldly. This is the first and last time, or you will get out of here immediately. Sengoku's tone was a little cold and murderous. This was his fleet admiral's office. Sakazuki's behavior didn't put him in his eyes at all. I'm sorry, this is my fault. Sakazuki's face stiffened as he realized his mistake and apologized solemnly. His huge fists were clenched with water stains, and his piercingly cold eyes were locked on Wu Chen. His breathing increased several times in an instant, and his panting appearance was like a cow on the verge of despair. One could see the blue veins on his forehead. What the hell is going on? Sengoku frowned and asked. Akainu's character is irritable, but he can control his emotions. Especially in front of the fleet admiral. He is often depressed. He is a man of virtue. Few people know that he can curse people like today. Sakazuki, are you talking about me? I made you have wet dreams for 7 days in a row. You should thank me. I'm thinking about you. Dustless winked at Sakazuki. Hearing this, the old men, including Sengoku and Garp, showed a playful expression. Their eyes were empty and unfocused. They seemed to be thinking about how beautiful Sakazuki was. Seeing this, Sakazuki's old face collapsed. His whole face was twitching, and he was trembling with anger. His cold eyes were deeper and almost turned into a substantial murderous aura. What kind of scene he saw in Tsukuyami's world could indeed be regarded as a wet dream. However, the objects were all strong, up to 10 meters tall, or even taller. Giant clan with thick chest and leg hair. What made Sakazuki vomit blood the most was that in Tsukuyami's world, he couldn't resist Dustless at all. He could only resign himself to being tortured by the group of giant clan women for 7 days in a row. It left a serious psychological barrier. Chapter 650. Dustless's smiling expression, like a sharp thorn, pierced into Akainu's heart, which was particularly painful. However, he couldn't accuse Dustless of his crimes to Sengoku and Garp. After being tortured by the giant with long chest hair and leg hair for 7 days, even if his face is as thick as a city wall, Akainu would find it difficult to speak. Not to mention telling Sengoku and others about the painful content of the unbearable memory. That's just asking for humiliation. Akainu can't say anything and can only endure it. He swore that he would definitely teach Wu Chen a lesson in the future. After all, it's about his face. It's not an open thing. If it gets out, the name Sakazuki will definitely become a laughingstock all over the world. He glared at Dustless and then sat on the sofa in silence. Seeing Akainu sitting down, Sengoku nodded slightly and smiled pleasantly. It seemed that he was quite satisfied with Akainu's attitude. They must work together in the same organization. After a while, Sengoku began to talk again. The main content was the situation of the world, pirates everywhere, and of course, the organization Shichibukai. That heavenly yaksha Doflamingo has the makings of a king, Garp suddenly said in a tone of praise. After becoming the king of Dressrosa, Doflamingo did not implement the imagined tyranny, but showed the spirit of a great monarch. The pirates who landed on Dressrosa were also defeated by Doflamingo, which was a big help to the Marine in disguise. He has some ability. Even if he doesn't want to admit it, Sengoku has to deny that Doflamingo has some skills. Dustless smiled mysteriously. This group of people is terrible. If they know what Doflamingo did, they will vomit blood and die. The reason why Dressrosa is so peaceful now is entirely because of Doflamingo's men, Sugar, who turned all the people who resisted into dolls. That's why Dressrosa is harmonious. However, one thing is undeniable. After Doflamingo became the king of Dressrosa, he did help the Marines a lot because the second island they entered was Dressrosa. The pirates who wanted to land on the island for supplies were all killed by Doflamingo in various cruel means, and the number of pirates in the New World decreased a lot in a short time. This may be the fundamental reason why Sengoku thanked him. A pirate is always a pirate, and Doflamingo is no exception. My men recently reported that the children in the periphery of Dressrosa have mysteriously disappeared. Maybe he did it. Akainu said with deep pain. He has no good feelings for pirates. Even the 7 warlords of the sea is no exception. Hearing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows without a trace. To be honest, he didn't quite understand what Akainu said, but it seems to be related to Doflamingo. Dustless estimated that it was most likely an experiment on human body enlargement. This kind of inhumane experiment had to be carried out on children. They would be locked in a specific environment and silently observe their growth cycle. I also heard about it. It seems to be the cause of the shipwreck. Sengoku frowned.
As for the person who reported the news of the shipwreck, he was called Virgo. Recently, there has been intelligence that Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai, seems to be plotting against Alabasta. Seeing that the wind was blowing wrong, Dustless immediately changed the topic and brought the problem to Crocodile. He didn't expect Akainu's dog nose to be so sensitive. Mentioning Crocodile immediately attracted Sengoku's attention. This snake lurking in the dark is far smarter than Doflamingo in broad daylight. At the same time, Doflamingo's ambition can only be bigger. Isn't that sand crocodile tamed by you? Where would he dare to come out and make trouble? Glancing at Dustless, Akainu said righteously. At the beginning of the Shichibukai meeting, Dustless took the opportunity to teach Crocodile an unforgettable lesson. Since then, he has begun to tuck his tail between his legs. In recent years, he has not done anything out of line, giving people a feeling of repentance. In short, Crocodile is now much more low-key than before. He gradually faded out of people's sight. The more he does this, the more he has a problem. Sengoku's eyes glowed with wisdom. When things are abnormal, there must be a demon. This is a truth that will never change. When Crocodile was young, he dared to challenge Whitebeard, who was still at his peak. Now that he is getting stronger and stronger, there is no reason for him to shrink back. That's right. Seeing that the topic returned to Crocodile, Dustless's mouth showed an untraceable arc. Now Caesar is hiding Dressrosa and secretly building Pluto. If it is discovered by Sengoku, it will be bad. After another round of greetings, about evening, Dustless left Marlindo and went to marry Ahua. In fact, Dustless quietly came to Dressrosa. In the luxurious palace, the cadres of the Don Quixote pirates were drunk, lying on the table without any image, or simply sleeping on the ground and snoring. Only Doflamingo was nowhere to be seen. Akainu's nose has smelled something wrong with Dressrosa. You should be careful in the future. As for the human body gigantification experiment, it is useless. Stop it. On the balcony, Dustless's figure was clearly visible, and his tone was resolute and irresistible. Everything is about value. If the human body gigantification experiment is profitable, Dustless will naturally choose to do it to the end, but in fact, it is useless. Doflamingo behind him was clearly visible. Although he was unwilling, he nodded wisely. Everything he had today was given to him by Dustless. After leaving Dustless, he will completely become a stray dog. No, saying that he is a stray dog is flattering. After all, a stray dog can still live, and without Dustless's protection, whether he can see the sun of the next day is a question.
Chapter 651.
Doflamingo was unwilling, but he could only hold it in and cursed Akainu, whose nose was sharper than a dog's, dozens of times. Then he remembered that Caesar's experiment had not made any progress, and he was relieved. The human gigantism experiment requires a long period of observation. Doflamingo did not have the leisure time to waste, but he secretly hated Akainu in his heart. For this mad dog, he was also very disgusted. The nickname Akainu came from this. Once he catches the enemy, no one can escape his nose that is sharper than a dog's. Maybe it wasn't Dustless's secret hindrance. Akainu had already come to the door. During this period, under the leadership of Doflamingo, they secretly visited the Pluton that Caesar was making. The exaggerated area, even Dustless couldn't help but be stunned after seeing it. It's no different from a moving steel island, and it's even better than that. The design of Pluton involves too much. The hardness and power of this super battleship are beyond imagination. According to Caesar's description, one shot can flatten an island at will. And the material used to build Pluton is very strange and extremely hard, which coincides with the stone carved with poneglyph and cannot be destroyed at all. This special material is not in Caesar's hands at present, so he can only choose other materials to replace it. Dustless wanted to melt the special material used to record the poneglyph to make Pluton, but after thinking about it, the poneglyphs scattered all over the world are rare, and it will take several years to collect it, and it is not enough to cope with the huge project of Pluton. Dustless also needs Robin to interpret the right and wrong grievances from hundreds of years ago. Therefore, he accepted Caesar's suggestion and used other materials to temporarily replace it. Although the ability in all aspects has been reduced, the power is still shocking enough to destroy an island. After Dressrosa dawdled for a few more days, Dustless returned to marry Ahua. After working hard for several days,
Dustless also felt deeply tired. After a simple wash, he was about to sleep when Hancock ran to Dustless's bedroom with messy steps. She wasn't as elegant as she usually was, and she didn't even knock on the door. A day ago, Marine Headquarters retired Admiral Z led his trainee ship to be attacked by pirates. All crew members were killed except for him and 2 students. Z's proud arm was cut off. Hancock reported. Dustless's sleepiness instantly disappeared. He couldn't help but be curious as he asked, "Who did it?" Although that old man Z is over 60 years old, his body is still as strong as an ox. Was it done by the 4 emperors? Z is famous for his armament hockey. His perverted defense is well known all over the world. To be able to cut off Z's arm, one can imagine how much power it takes. Hancock shook her head, and her beautiful eyes looked strange. Chapter 652. The Den Den Mushi's expression was fierce. It's not difficult to see how angry Fleet Admiral Sengoku was. In the past, the arm of a Marine Admiral was cut off. There must be a limit to his arrogance and barbarism. That damn pirate must pay the price. The moment he picked up the Den Den Mushi, Sengoku's hysterical roar came over, and this look of resentment seemed to jump out from the Den Den Mushi. Think about it, Z is not only a close friend of Sengoku, but to some extent like Garp, he symbolizes the face of the Marine. Don't be impatient, don't forget that you are a Marine Fleet Admiral. You have to keep a poker face at all times. Dustless quietly sipped his tea and calmly said, "The one who was cut off is your subordinate and close friend. What will you do?" Sengoku asked in a low and hoarse voice. His tone was full of violence. As a Fleet Admiral, he really has to keep a poker face and not be seen through by others. However, there is a saying that the law is nothing more than human feelings, and Sengoku is not heartless. It depends on the person. With a deep light in his eyes, Dustless gave an ambiguous answer. For example, if someone like Hawkeye is killed one day, Dustless doesn't mind avenging him. As for Doflamingo, this kind of alien, not whipping his body after death is already too easy for him. By the way, is that guy really Whitebeard's son? This is interesting. The son of the old Whitebeard is an imbecile. Is this karma? Dustless said with interest. Imbecile. Sengoku's face turned green, and he was dissatisfied. The imbecile you said almost killed an admiral. If he can give birth to such an imbecile, I don't think Whitebeard will mind having a few more. Sengoku said angrily, although Z is old and his strength is not as good as before, he is still a Marine Admiral. What I said is the truth. That guy's brain is indeed lacking something. He didn't expect Sengoku to care so much about Z. Then he frowned and said, Z didn't lose to him unjustly. That guy's body is not right. There are several shocking scars on his body. His head and hands seem to have been cut off, but he is still alive. It sounded like a fantasy story, but that was the truth. There was even a photo as proof, so there was no room for quibbling. In the photo sent by Hancock, Edward Weevil's neck and arms were clearly visible. Apparently, they had been cut off by something sharp, but strangely, they overlapped. This meant that he had some kind of extraordinary healing ability. This guy is surprisingly similar to Kaido the 100 Beast. Carefully looking at the tall man in the photo, Dustless immediately thought of 100 Beast Kaido. Although there was a difference in ability, his physique and all kinds of wounds all over his body were clearly visible. They were all veterans. However, you should have a deeper meaning for coming to me, Sengoku. Dustless asked bluntly. Even if the Marine Headquarters really wants to deal with Edward Weevil, the task can be handed over to Kizaru and Akiji in the New World. Dustless is far away in Mariehua. As a result, it may delay the opportunity. Sengoku is such a smart person. Naturally, it is impossible for him to make a mistake. Hearing this, Sengoku, who was far away in the Marine Headquarters, immediately nodded slightly. He did have other purposes. Although that guy is strong, in the end, he is just a little kid who has not seen the world. His brain is not enough and he is easy to control. Sengoku said. Dustless's eyes flashed. After a little thought, he understood what Sengoku meant. Are you going to recruit him into the organization, 7 Warlords of the Sea? Dustless said straightforwardly. Dustless couldn't help but look gloomy. Even though the relationship with Z was extremely unharmonious,
He felt that it was not worth it for him at the moment. Z dedicated his life to the Marine and the whole world. But this world mercilessly abandoned Z. That's not what I mean. For that bullshit, Whitebeard too. I can't wait to tear him to pieces. His eyes were filled with killing intent, and the desk in front of Sengoku instantly burst into powder. I am also helpless. This is what Mariehua and the other 5 meant. Their authority is above everything. In the end, I am just a Marine Fleet Admiral. In the end, Sengoku's tone was full of loneliness. In an instant, he was dozens of years older, revealing deep helplessness. That indescribable special feeling, through the den mushi, fell into Dustless's ears one by one. Dustless couldn't help but look up and sigh. Sengoku was telling the truth. He was just a Marine Fleet Admiral. At most, he was an employee with more power. At some times, the so-called Marine is more like a scapegoat. Dustless can also understand the idea of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. With such a powerful high-end combat power, and a bad brain, easy to fool, it is indeed the most appropriate to pull him into the 7 warlords of the sea. At present, there is only one seat left in the Shichibukai: Crocodile, Gecko Moria, Tyrant Kuma, Doflamingo, Hawkeye, and Jinbe. If Edward Wilbur joins, it will be enough. As for the original Empress, Boa Hancock, she has become Dustless's maid. What do you think of this proposal? Sengoku asked expectantly. Hearing this, Dustless's thoughts quickly changed, calculating the gains and losses. After about a few seconds of silence, he licked his dry and cracked lips, and his hesitant eyes shone with awe-inspiring luster. Sorry, Sengoku. I refuse this proposal. I can't accept Edward Wilbur as a Shichibukai. This is not an exchange between superiors and subordinates, but an order issued by the celestial dragons. His eyes were as calm as stagnant water. Dustless made a wise judgment. He had already thought of a candidate for the last Shichibukai position. As for Edward Wilbur, he should go home and play with mud. Chapter 653. Hearing the solemn voice coming from the other side of the den mushi, Sengoku couldn't help but stare. This slightly magnetic and full of reason tone is obviously not a joke. Dustless will not agree with Edward Weevil to become a Shichibukai. Although he doesn't know the reason, Sengoku heard Dustless's unshakable tone. Obviously, even if the Gorosei came in person, Dustless will not change his point of view. When he was about to ask what the reason is, Sengoku suddenly thought about it and shut up. This is the scene he wants to see. There is no need to ask for trouble. If the Gorosei are not happy, let them find trouble with the celestial dragons. Sengoku also has the mentality of being a shopkeeper. He put the ball in the Gorosei's court. That's what it means to be a superior. If the Gorosei have any dissatisfaction, they can find Dustless, who is a celestial dragons, to vent their anger. Ah! Didn't you want to pull that guy into the Shichibukai? Now you want to kill him. On the blue sea, several marine battleships were moving quickly. Kizaru, who turned off the den mushi, was puzzled. At first, he received the order to pull Edward Weevil into the Shichibukai, but now Sengoku asked to kill him directly. The contrast between before and after is too big. What the final decision is, that's a game for the big guys to play. We just need to obey the result. Stretching lazily, Akiji took off the blindfold on his eyes and stood up from the couch. Unlike usual, his eyes were dotted with cold light at the moment. For Z, he was grateful to him and treated him like a teacher. It's terrible. Kizaru's eyes fell on Akiji and his mouth whispered. Full of indifference, everyone knows that Z and Kizaru are the most disharmonious in the teacher-student relationship. If one day Kizaru accepts the task of killing Z everywhere, he will definitely execute it without mercy. That guy's body is almost indestructible. Be careful when you meet him. I heard that his strength is almost on par with the young Whitebeard. Kizaru's old face was cautious. Akiji also nodded solemnly. The person who can cut off Z's arm is at least at the same level as them. In order to avoid repeating the tragedy of Z, Sengoku sent Akiji and Kizaru at the same time. Only in this way can he feel confident. On the other side, the atmosphere was also very strange. Inside the luxurious villa, the lights were intertwined and colorful. The exquisite crystal chandelier was full of nobility.
It was such a beautiful scene, but no one appreciated it. Instead, it was filled with the smell of gunpowder. Dustless was sitting on the sofa with a tranquil expression. His hands were carefully flipping through the books, and from time to time, he would lower his head and ponder. As for the bald Quelder stars in white Taoist robes, he had already put them aside. Back then, Dustless had used a scheme to steal the first-generation ghost blade from him, so they could be considered acquaintances. That guy is very stupid. He is the top fighting force that the government is looking for. In the future we can even completely control him. It is unwise to kick him out of the position of Shichibukai. The bald Quelder stars was dissatisfied. Because of Dustless's verbal order, their world government's plan, which had been painstakingly managed for a long time, collapsed in an instant. Hearing this, Dustless just raised his head and glanced at him faintly and continued to look down at the book. The content of the book was quite simple. It was the distribution and structure of the entire world's islands. But it looked more interesting than the old man's words.
Lewis South, please give me a reason that is enough to convince this old man. Seeing Dustless ignoring him one after another, the voice of the bald Quelder stars was raised by several decibels, with a hint of anger. As one of the highest powers in the world, he was ignored by this kid. How can he feel good?
Didn't I say that's an order? There is no reason. An order is an order. Continuing to look down at the book, he didn't look up from the beginning to the end. The whisper sounded in the ears of the bald Quelder stars. Dustless had a look of indifference.
Although the Quelder stars are actually the lackeys of the celestial dragons, the 5 of them are obviously complying with the celestial dragons.
Realizing that their wings are hard, they want to abandon their master and fly alone. The old face of the bald Quelder stars collapsed. He wanted to refute but was speechless. This ridiculous reason made him speechless because the law stipulates so. The celestial dragons are above all things in the world, and any law that binds human beings has no effect on them. Don't ask more, it is your duty to listen and execute. Touching the sides of his eyes, Dustless seemed a little tired. He waved his hand and asked them to leave. The bald Quelder stars could only stare and leave. Master, you are too much of a bully. Seeing the maid of the bald Quelder stars leave, Hancock, dressed in a black maid dress, rushed out of the darkness, and her exquisite figure was vividly highlighted. She rubbed Dustless's shoulders very knowingly. Do you think it's too much? Dustless asked calmly. Hearing the words, Hancock gently nodded. This unreasonable bandit logic is completely suppressing people. Of course, Dustless's strength is also what the Quelder stars are most afraid of. The orders of the celestial dragons are never justified. They are just to satisfy their own selfish desires. Closing the book in his hand, Dustless said naturally. The celestial dragons are like this. Orders are orders, they don't need any reason, they are only responsible for the execution. Dustless will not be bored enough to reason with the Quelder stars. He is completely relying on his superior identity to suppress people. Even if they are not convinced, they can't do anything. Because the law made by the Quelder stars is based on the supremacy of the celestial dragons. You are forcing them. Hancock reminded him. A cornered dog would jump over a wall. One day in the future, it was possible that the 5 elder stars would do some crazy things if they were driven crazy. At least they are far from crazy now. Shrugging, Dustless said indifferently. Chapter 654. In this regard, Hancock can't deny that Mariehua Tenryubito temperament is like this. They do everything according to their own will. As for motivation, they don't need it at all. Through the balcony glass, seeing the bald Gorosei, 5 elder stars, leaving in anger, Hancock couldn't help but sigh. To put it bluntly, they used their identity and status to suppress you, and there was nothing they could do about it. The celestial dragons were the biggest arbitrators in the world. Whoever he said was wrong. Reversing black and white, pointing a deer as a horse was what they were best at. It's useless to resist. After all, the world government and the Tenryubito behind the scenes have existed for more than 800 years. During this period, there have been countless rebellions, but they were all cruelly suppressed in the end. Even if the 5 honored stars refused to accept this, they would only make some small moves in private. If they brazenly went against them, only death would await them. In the future, Doflamingo, who has no rights, can make the world government hesitate.
Dustless, who has great power, naturally makes the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, more afraid.
In short, Z will eat this loss. Dustless whispered.
An admiral of the Marine headquarters, his right arm was cut off. He is most proud of his superb armament hockey, so he also has the nickname Black Wrist. The blow to him can be imagined. Do you want to tame that old man? Dustless's eyes flashed with a bright light, and he suddenly had an idea in his heart. Regenerating a severed arm is a fantasy for others, but for him, it's a trivial matter.
Dustless can even bring the dead back to life easily.
It was because he promised Nico Robin to resurrect her mother that she obediently went to Dustless's ship. That stubborn old man. Forget it. Shaking his head, Dustless immediately denied the idea.
Rashly contacting Z will only bring shame to himself.
Dustless has already heard of the old man's strict and stubborn temper, and he will certainly be rejected without hesitation and ridiculed. But then again, Akiji and Kizaru will join forces to deal with Edward Wilbur.
Dustless's heart splashed with faint ripples. After a few seconds, it calmed down again.
The generals joined forces to deal with Edward Wilbur.
From this, one could see how strong Edward Wilbur was.
His strength was enough to blow away a town, and his weapon was the same as Whitebeard's.
It was not an exaggeration to say that he was Whitebeard's son. Hancock nodded. Fortunately, he was just a simple child. His wisdom was only as high as that of an 8 or 9-year-old child. Otherwise, the future Yonko might have changed.
As for whether Akiji and Kizaru are opponents, Dustless doesn't know. Whoever lives or dies has nothing to do with him.
The only thing he cares about is the position of Shichibukai.
With the mentality of watching a play, let them make trouble. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had already passed. Dustless originally thought that the 5 Elder Stars were unwilling to give up and secretly used some small tricks.
They had even made preparations for a follow-up move. However, the entire sea was calm and tranquil these days. Z's consciousness has awakened.
In the Fleet Admiral's office, Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief. His pale face squeezed out a few far-fetched smiles. His eyes were cloudy and he looked very tired and listless.
Before celebrating Z's recovery, I think you should thank me.
Dustless's untimely whisper fell into everyone's ears and the atmosphere suddenly stiffened.
Thank you. Sengoku wondered.
If it wasn't for Dustless's interference, Edward Wilbur would have become Shichibukai and would be famous all over the world.
I'm talking about other aspects.
Looking at Sengoku's eyes, Dustless was sure that this old guy was thinking crooked. Then he shook his finger and said with deep meaning. These words made a group of Marine executives look at each other and they were confused. I mean, once Edward Weevil joins the 7 warlords of the sea, what do you think Z will do?
Dustless went straight to the point. Sengoku's expression solidified.
If it was before, he wouldn't doubt Z, but after several pirate attacks, Z's heart will have slowly changed. Sengoku was sure that after Edward Wilbur became Shichibukai, Z would leave the Marine and even stand on the opposite side of the entire Marine.
Sengoku's heart was filled with emotions.
His best friend who fought side by side with him may give up his former ties at any time for some reason and turn to stand on the opposite side.
Don't you have to thank me, Sengoku?
Seeing Sengoku wake up from his dream, Dustless said with a smile. Hearing this, Sengoku just raised his head and glanced at Dustless, then he simply ignored him.
His eyes fell on Kizaru and Akiji.
He frowned and asked, "You two joined forces and still let him run away?"
Sengoku looked at Kizaru and Akiji.
The 2 admirals joined forces and still let the enemy run away. Although they left him with wounds, it still didn't make sense. Akiji shrugged his shoulders and showed a helpless look. Edward Wilbur is an ability user and he has a strong healing ability.
It's not easy to kill him.
Even when Akiji and Kizaru fought, they cut off his arm but it was still strangely connected.
This is bad luck.
Sengoku's old face turned into a pig's liver color as he cursed in his heart. He originally expected to capture Edward Wilbur alive and kill him to avenge Z, but he didn't expect the kid's ability to be so strong and finally let him run away. Dustless sipped his tea quietly until the end of the meeting. He didn't speak as if he was just going through the motions. Now the 3 admirals are the pillars of the Marine. An outsider like him naturally doesn't need to interrupt.
Life or death doesn't matter to him. He is just a bystander. Chapter 655. For the hatred between pirates and marines, Dustless is not interested in participating. Two crows standing on the coal, no one is black. Pirates are not good things. Sometimes marines also subdue bandits. Even if Edward Wilbur really joins the 7 warlords of the sea, Sensei will not leave Marine. Don't forget, he has dedicated his life to Marine. Marine is all he has. It is his family. Akiji stood up and said loudly. This remark attracted everyone's agreement and they nodded. Z has fought countless pirates in his life, but never killed any enemy. He is known as the former admiral of the Marine headquarters. He can be so kind to the enemy. He must be very loving to his own people. That was before. Raising his eyelids and looking at Akiji carefully, Dustless whispered. From the time his wife and children were killed, Z had an unforgettable resentment against pirates, but he forced himself to suppress it. There is one more thing. Akiji's calm face was high and he sneered. The whole Marine status is equivalent to Z's family. But one day, these family members betrayed and abandoned him, with his enemies. What do you think will happen? As soon as Wu Chen finished speaking, the scene instantly went deathly silent like water, perfectly silent, and it was like a club that struck everyone awake from their muddle-headedness. Why did Z betray and leave the Marine? It was completely because he was forced out. So the key factor is not Z, but the strategy of the government and Sengoku. This. Akiji's face was stiff and the words on his mouth stopped. If he has been loyal to the existence of the Marine and one day betrayed and abandoned him, Akiji will not be relieved. At that time, maybe he will leave the Marine and even stand on the opposite side of the Marine is not impossible. Today's meeting is over. Seeing that there is no reason to discuss, Sengoku was annoyed and directly ended the meeting. But there is one thing that Sengoku can be sure of. If it wasn't for Dustless, Z would definitely leave the Marine. He was more or less grateful to Wu Chen, even though he knew that Wu Chen didn't have good intentions. The Marines looked at each other and left the conference room. No one dared to provoke the angry fleet admiral, so they all left quietly. In the huge conference room, there were only a few people left. Looking around, they were all the backbone of the Marine, belonging to the mainstay type. Bastard, that Edward Weevil was instigated by someone else to ambush Z. Seeing everyone leave, Sengoku yelled. In fact, the Navy had noticed his existence before, but at that time Edward Weevil's wisdom was similar to that of a few years old child, and he was not a pirate at that time. Therefore he was muddling along, and now he suddenly attacked the Marine. Obviously there was someone behind the scenes. Is it Whitebeard? Dustless nodded. The attack on Z's ship was indeed orchestrated by someone behind the scenes. The first person he thought of was Whitebeard. After a moment of silence, he directly ignored him. Other people can sneak attack Whitebeard, but Whitebeard won't sneak attack others. Instigating others to sneak attack Z, Whitebeard can't pull down his face. Forget it, there is one more thing, it is necessary to remind you. Sengoku said cautiously. The New World's Yonko, 4 emperors, have been recuperating for several years, and their strength is not far from the original, and even better than their heyday. How is that possible? Wasn't Kaido's fleet almost annihilated? Garp asked in surprise. Akainu, Akiji, and Kizaru all cast a puzzled look, because the initiator of this incident was Dustless, and only a small number of elites escaped with Kaido. To reorganize the fleet not only requires a lot of money, but also countless manpower. It is impossible to improve the fleet in just a few years. There was a flash of hesitation in his eyes. Sengoku's tone was gloomy. I don't know the specific situation, I don't know where he collected the devil fruit and formed a legion of Zoan ability users. Legion. Hearing this, Garp and the 3 admirals' faces were extremely ugly. It is enough to see how many people there are in a legion, at least more than 3 digits. No wonder Kaido's strength has been expanding recently, and he even formed a devil fruit army. It is estimated that the source is Doflamingo's artificial devil fruit. Dustless guessed. Although Kaido and Doflamingo had a grudge before, under the absolute interests, everything can be done without hindrance. But that kid is still bad enough. Now the artificial devil fruit developed by Caesar is a failure, and he actually sold it to Kaido. Today's failed products are good, close to the finished product, but the effect is like a stimulant. After a period of time, the body will be sluggish, and the side effect is life. By the way, what about the Akagami, red hair pirates? Dustless asked after thinking for a while. Sengoku picked up the confidential document in his hand, and after reading it carefully, he cautiously said, "There is a secret message that points out that Akagami, red hair, is very strong, and it is likely that he is the most difficult Yonko for emperors to deal with besides Whitebeard." After that, Sengoku handed the document in his hand to the goat, and the latter bleated a few times and swallowed it. Dustless saw a few important words above: Akagami, red hair. Shanks went to the Sabaody archipelago. What is his purpose in going to the Sabaody archipelago to find Rayleigh? Dustless secretly thought. Akagami, red hair, is slightly stronger than Rayleigh, whose body is getting worse year by year. For no reason, he went around half of the world and went to the Sabaody archipelago to meet him. Chapter 656. After thinking about it for a while, Wu Chen, who couldn't figure out the reason, was not entangled. Any conspiracy in the face of absolute strength was deceiving oneself and others. Only the fist was the absolute truth. Everything else was not important. However, I'll just let you guys do whatever you want. Make a mess of this world and then I'll appear as the world's savior. To stand up after destruction, this is also in line with my plan. Wu Chen muttered to himself indifferently like a cool breeze. Although the current situation is contrary to what he originally expected, the ultimate goal is still the same. How is the body transformation of the tyrant bear? Sengoku's sudden words immediately attracted Dustless's attention. Vegapunk is not simple. He can use mechanization to control the bear. Dustless nodded silently. Bear's brain has been changed and replaced by various machines and various chips. Dustless's previous tricks on him also mean that they have lost their effect. His brain has been replaced by some chips and various instruments. During this period, Dustless tried to control him again, but it ended in failure. The current progress is going well. Kizaru's face changed slightly, and he seemed to remember the unbearable past. Since he wants to install a beam on the humanoid weapon, sometimes, he will need Kizaru to be a white mouse. Dustless smiled when he saw this. He could understand Kizaru's difficulties. A Marine Admiral will sometimes be placed on the operating table, and it really has nothing to do with face. After about half an hour, Dustless and others left one after another. In the empty conference room, only Sengoku was left. A month later, the bright morning sun tilted thousands of miles and sprinkled all over the world. My hockey is still not enough. After returning to Mariehua, Dustless began to train himself crazily. Without relying on Hokage's power, he could barely be equal to a Kainu in terms of the world's native power. For about a month, Dustless had been training himself. Moreover, this training lasted as long as a few years. In the brightly lit room, the little girl, who looked like she was carved out of jade, was jumping around happily. Her pair of deep black eyes sparkled like agates, and her delicate face was like the work of the gods. Yuki, if I remember correctly, you are 11 years old, but you are still alive and don't know etiquette. Dustless, who was sitting on the sofa and reading the newspaper, scolded. A few years have slipped away, but the years have not left obvious traces on his body. It's none of your business. Anyway, what you say doesn't count. Making a funny face at Wu Chen, Yushi's bell-like laughter continued. Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Yuki often lives in the system space with Kagaya, so she is extremely dependent on her, and Kagaya is extremely doting on her only daughter. Thus, it also caused Wu Chen to have no right to speak. Whatever he said, this little girl would disregard it and adopt a perfunctory attitude. Come here. His face was slightly cold. Taking advantage of the fact that Huiji was not here today, Wu Chen planned to teach this little girl how to respect her teacher. In the past, every time he wanted to deal with this little girl, Huiji would always stop him. Yuki was obviously not an ordinary person. She inherited the bloodline of Kagaya and Dustless at the same time, and her ability index in all aspects was reported. Boom! Accompanied by a dull sound, the dazzling sunlight suddenly shone in. Yuki didn't even open the door and simply broke out of the wall. Master, how many times has Miss done this? Hancock's face was full of helplessness, and she was speechless about the father and daughter. This is also a free vent. The comfortable sea breeze came through the hole. Dustless took a deep breath, and his whole person felt much more relaxed, as if he was walking in the clouds. Looking carefully, Dustless and the others were on a fully equipped yacht. There were very few people on such a large yacht, and they only casually brought a few attendants, not even a bodyguard.
Dead father, come and see what I got.
Yukishi's crisp childish voice resounded through his ears. Dustless just helplessly shook his head and sighed. He had corrected Yukishi countless times, but this little girl still called him that. She even directly called Dustless by his name.
This is all your fault, master.
Hancock rolled her eyes. Dustless didn't deny it. He really didn't accompany Yukishi for a long time, and these days he was very idle, so he wanted to take her to the East China Sea to play, which could be regarded as a kind of alternative compensation. His body turned into a breeze, and in an instant he came to Yukishi's side. It's just a broken bucket, what's there to be surprised about? There's someone inside? Even Dustless, who was accustomed to storms, couldn't help but be stunned at this moment. On the endless sea, there was no sign of life for hundreds of kilometers. Could it be? This strange way of drifting made Dustless suddenly think of a person, after so many years. He should also go to the sea, but Dustless didn't expect such a coincidence. And he was caught by his daughter. I'm really sorry. I encountered a shipwreck on the first day of going to the sea.
A handsome boy came out of the wooden bucket, and the face that came into view was the face in Dustless's memory, wearing a plain straw hat, with a sunny smile on his face, and an optimistic attitude. In the dark, Dustless also seemed to be influenced. The chill in his heart was swept away, and his eyes looked at the naive boy in front of him. In the future, he would turn the whole world upside down. Monchi D. Luffy. Dustless subconsciously called out the boy's name. Chapter 657. Luffy's eyes widened. When he mentioned the word Garp, his eyes were filled with fear. He had goosebumps all over his body as if he had met the devil. Wuxia could even see his exposed shivering hairs. This kid is surprisingly afraid of Garp. But it seems that he doesn't know anything. Seeing Luffy looking at him blankly, Dustless guessed. Shanks obviously didn't tell him that Dustless had taken over Luffy's body. Maybe this is what people call fate. Staring at Luffy's face, Dustless felt dull. Just for a moment, he lost interest in Luffy. Dustless carefully scrutinized Luffy in front of him. To be honest, Dustless didn't feel anything special about him. Only his sunny smiling face was quite approachable. At first glance, he could tell that he was the kind of person who liked to be familiar with others. Do you want to kill him now to solve the big problem? White Zetsu quietly came over with a fierce look in his eyes. As long as Monchi D. Luffy is killed now, he will be free in the future. Is there a reason to kill him now? Dustless asked non-committally. His voice always remained indifferent. Because he is the sea. The words on the tip of his tongue stopped abruptly. White Zetsu suddenly realized that Luffy had just gone to sea and had no bounty, so he was not a pirate. A child who likes to fantasize, there is no need to make it so exaggerated. Glancing at White Zetsu, Dustless said. A teenager, no matter how strong he is, it is impossible for him to have the strength to threaten him in the future. Looking at Luffy who was talking with his daughter, Dustless smiled and didn't say anything to disturb them. Perhaps because they are of the same age, it is easier to communicate. Seeing Dustless so determined, White Zetsu couldn't speak. After all, he was created by Dustless. Indeed, as Dustless said, a person has a limit. No one can grow endlessly, including Dustless himself. Master, it's not good to let a stranger on the boat. Hancock frowned and whispered. The human heart was unfathomable. In this day and age, there were countless hungry wolves that ate people without spitting out the bones. Do you think he can beat me? Glancing at Hancock, Dustless asked with interest. Hearing this, Boa Hancock resolutely shook her head and opened her mouth. Seeing that Dustless's face still remained calm, she swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. If they wanted to harm Dustless, they had to at least have the strength to defeat him. The next morning, the morning breeze blew and the sparkling surface of the sea was covered with a layer of dazzling gold. Dustless casually found an island with living people and threw Luffy off. This was also his own request. Luffy had been clamoring for companions, which annoyed Dustless to no end. He might as well throw him out and let him fend for himself. Hey, you haven't told me your name yet. In the future,
I will repay you when I become famous all over the world.
On the bustling dock, Luffy waved his fist and shouted at the luxurious ship docked at the shore. On the ship, a figure with an expressionless face, hands in trouser pockets, looked down at Luffy indifferently and said, "You don't need to know my name.
It will only make you despair. Ignorance is also a kind of happiness. Sometimes knowing too much will make you feel pain." After that, Dustless's body suddenly lost its texture. Like an afterimage, he floated away.
In the vast sky, only Dustless's cold voice echoed.
"The next time we meet, maybe we will be enemies." Luffy stood in place with a sluggish face. He was confused by Dustless's words. Perhaps because of his optimistic attitude, Luffy once again showed a sunny smile, full of cheerfulness. Little did he know that a figure in the darkness had coincidentally witnessed this scene. When he saw Luffy leave, the black figure hesitated for a moment before following him.
On the endless sea, monstrous ripples were set off, and looking closely, a large ship was moving forward rapidly. Looking at the sea ahead, his deep eyes were full of indescribable magic. Seeing through layers of space, Luffy's past and future appeared in Dustless's eyes.
"Master, Vice Admiral Garp is on the phone." Hancock handed over the Den Den Mushi that was used to communicate with Garp. "The fishman named Arlong. You should have an impression of him. He was the fishman who attacked Mariehua before. Later, Jinbe became one of the Shichibukai and bailed him out, but that kid's temperament did not change and he is still a pirate." On the other side of the Den Den Mushi came Garp's old but full of energy voice.
Hearing this, Dustless suddenly understood what the old man was thinking.
He wanted him to clean up Arlong. "I have left East Blue and now I am on the way back to Mariehua. Someone else will deal with Arlong." Dustless refused righteously. "Someone else?" Garp was stunned when he heard this. East Blue is the weakest sea area of the 4 seas. Arlong is the local snake there and he is also a little famous figure. Few people in East Blue dare to offend him. "That's right. And you know this person. You're very familiar with him," Wu Chen said with a smile. His tone carried a hint of bad intentions. Garp, who was far away in Marlin, was confused.
He was only familiar with Windmill Town in the East Sea, and with the strength of that group of people, they could do things like plundering and robbing, but as for challenging Arlong of the Fishman race, they were still far too weak. After thinking for a long time, Garp barely thought of a figure in his mind and his old face suddenly turned green.
"Is it Luffy?" Garp's old face was twitching and countless crows floated over his head. He felt that his eyelids were twitching and it was definitely not a good thing. He didn't expect the reason to be Luffy. "The bloodline of your Monchi family is unbelievably strong." Dustless recognized Garp's answer in disguise and was filled with emotion. Garp is a marine hero. He has driven Roger to desperation several times, making him world famous. His son Dorag is known as the world's most ferocious criminal. As for Luffy, the rising star, he will not be worse than the previous 2 in the future. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.